Why is the age of puberty dropping so rapidly? What leptin is there for essentially is to tell the brain whether you have enough energy reserves to undertake comparatively demanding challenges like getting pregnant or starting puberty. If your hormones think you are starving, those processes will not be allowed to begin. That's why young people who are anorexic often have a very delayed start to puberty. It's also almost certainly why puberty starts years earlier now than it did in historic times. Says Wazes. In Henry VIII's reign, puberty started at 16 or 17. Now it is more commonly 11. That's almost certainly because of improved nutrition. From Bill Bryson's The Body. Here you go. I read in a magazine once. Scientific American possibly. There's possibly a correlation with weight and nutrition to the start of puberty. Not necessarily an age. Anecdotally, I have a cousin who started puberty, developing physically, menstruating, etc., at 8 and was very large for her age, whereas the rest of the family is generally somewhere around 13/14. I'm going to give a minority opinion here and say that people in the 1860 study were probably significantly less honest and reliable than they would be today. And to talk about bodily functions that way was considerably more taboo. So that has an effect on the study as well, because people could intentionally say the age was later than it actually was. I'm amazed at the amount of people who use anecdotes as evidence. The fact that you were skinny and started puberty early is not an evidence that nutrition or obesity have nothing to do with it. The fact that your great-aunt started puberty at 1160 years ago does not mean that puberty is not starting earlier nowadays compared to previous decades and centuries. How old Juliet of Romeo and Juliet was, or how old a random monarch or nobility was in the 15th century was when they got married is not a scientific proof of anything. I don't have the explanation. Cold sweat smile. I'm just amazed by some of the comments and wanted to share my frustration. Edward I, Longshanks, was like 14 and his wife when they had their first kid. That was medieval times. So IDK. Believe it or not, the medical science communities haven't always understood how women's anatomy works. We've gotten a little bit better since then. Menarche. The onset of first menstruation is triggered in part by the young lady having enough body fat that she could carry a pregnancy to term. Hormones are fats. And if you don't have enough fat to spare, no puberty. Until recently in human history, uncertain nutrition and the diseases we now prevent with vaccines could be counted on to keep that body fat low. This isn't the case now. Though if enough people stop vaccinating their kids, it could be true again. I don't know about obesity. They are blaming everything on obesity. All 3 of my daughters started theirs around 11. 2 were skinny as rails and 1 was heavy-ish. As a former second-grade teacher, I was sometimes shocked to see visible signs of beginning puberty in girls. Not boys though. I have no idea where you got your data from, but the average range of puberty is between the ages of 8 and 13 in girls and 9 and 14 in boys. Physician here. I don't know how these data are collected, but most likely they are false. 812-year-old females have been married and getting pregnant throughout our entire documented history. Everywhere in the planet. Look up the concubines of medieval or ancient kings such as Henry from UK, Chinese dynasties, and even prophets like Muhammad, Solomon. So yes, the 1980 data is most likely just false. Edit. For those wondering the accuracy of my statement, the requirement for pregnancy is puberty. You can't be pregnant without reaching puberty. I read that girls living in a threatening environment, so experiencing constant stress, can bring on puberty earlier. It, apparently, is the body's natural response in order to keep the species going. We thought it was all the hormones they've been putting in foods, like milk. It's a large combination of factors. We have better nutrition today than in 1860, meaning delayed puberty due to malnutrition is lower. We have environmental factors and artificial hormones causing people to start puberty earlier. But my hunch is, one of the biggest reasons is changes to the accuracy of recording of medical results. Back in 1860, women's health wasn't exactly a science. If the studies you've read don't have an explanation, I don't see why you think the average Redditor would know. I see a lot of people mentioning obesity, but I'm not so sure that's it. My sister and I are both Gen Z and have been very thin our whole lives, and we both started puberty very young. I got my period at 11 and she got hers at 9. The onset of puberty is influenced by nutrition and activity. What things can you think of that might have influenced those factors since 1860? I got my period at age 14. I was happy it took that long because I was in no rush to start bleeding. It's funny though, I was in middle school and I had friends who'd be like, you could have sex if you wanted without having to worry. That was the last thing on my mind. But I will say some of the middle schoolers I schooled with were pretty developed for 11-13-year-olds. In 1860, did scientists even know what puberty was? How did they test it? Was it self-reported? Could there simply be a cultural issue where a 11-year-old having her period was talked about or reported to scientists or whoever?
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.